Welcome to our channel Lightlink Vision. Today Mother will continue with part 6 of her answer to the environment question, what can we do to save our planet, or what can we do to save ourselves? In part 5, Mother talked about the philosophy of freedom and its relation to the problem of the environment. So Mother, please continue with part 6.
I talked in my last talk about freedom of man, and modern man makes in some way abuse of his freedom by incorrect thinking. I think that when we talk about the solution of environmental problems, I think the first thing man has to do is to include the wisdom of the sages again in his way of functioning. In ancient times, man has always taken into account the wisdom of the sages. That was completely out of that had no religious meaning. I mean, going to a church or not to a church, belonging to a religious community or not, it was not that what it was about. It had to do with kings, those who had the power, who were on top of society when it comes to decision making. They very often included the wisdom of wise men or women, whatever you want, wise men, women, those who had contact with higher sources of consciousness and of wisdom in themselves. Their philosophy, their wisdom, their knowledge was taken into consideration far more than nowadays. Of course, there's a reason for it. I mean, not everybody who has a certain kind of contact with unseen realities is wise. That is sure. So there's a lot going on also on that level nowadays, but you can also say that not everybody who has gone to school is a scientific. The difficulty with the way of reasoning of man is that man is not aware that his reasoning is most of the time in service of his sympathies, his personal sympathies or antipathies, or his the So when he has to find solutions for the environmental problem, the risk is there that he turns around in circles, because he's not enough aware that finding solutions means making sacrifices. And because he's not ready to make a sacrifice, he will not find a solution. One of the reasons why we for the moment have a big problem in finding solutions is that we do not allow ourselves to be honest with ourselves. Because being honest means that I have to admit that there are things I have to change in my life. And I already talked about it. Then I have to face myself, the people around me, and to say that I don't do anymore and that I want to do, and that might create conflicts around me or in myself. The environmental problem has to do with reasoning in favor of what pleases me or what is most easy in my life. And that's the kind of reasoning that everybody on a day-to-day basis uses. I will do what I think I can do without having too much trouble with my environment. I will not easily say, this is what I feel I have to do, whatever you think of me, whatever you will do, if you will stay or if you will go. It's take it or leave it. That kind of, I'm afraid that it's that kind of attitude that we need to solve the environmental problems. And that kind of attitude almost nobody has. They will say, that is too absolute, that is too extreme. I don't think so, because nature shows us that she will go to extremes to force us in the right direction. And she will, because it's her survival. So you can say from a certain point of view that what we think extreme thinking, an extreme point of view, is not extreme at all. It's the only thing that can solve this problem, this environmental problem. And if we won't have this courage to apply it in our own lives for all kinds of reasons, then nature will force us. But I think that nature will force us, and that is what will be our solution. Because we won't have the courage to do it for ourselves, because of our link to our environment, that we don't dare to start a conflict. And also because in our reasoning, and that goes together with this problem of being linked to your environment, in our reasoning we are not honest. We always find reasons why we do what we do, and in fact why we never do what we should do. And this is one of the reasons why in the past, for very important questions, you had what we call the sages, the wise men or women. They were there to guarantee to a human society that reasonable solutions were applied before it became too big problems. It often worked, but not always. Sometimes it did not work. And then you had wars or all kinds of natural disasters on a more small scale, but still it existed. Of course, it has always existed. And even on bigger scales. But it was the consciousness of referring to a kind of intelligence that transcends man, that goes above our human intelligence, and that was living in what we call the wise in the past. That was a solution and a very positive element in human civilization up until very recently. And that worked. Whereas modern man refers only to himself and his reasoning. He sees the things well and he knows. And what he doesn't know, the scientifics know, but they don't know it neither. Because if they knew it, they would already have found the solution. And I'm afraid they're also struggling inside of themselves with this basic problem. What can I say and what can't I say? Because it's my salary, it's my place, it's my social status, it's what my wife is spending all the time that I have to finance. That is the problem of man. That's to say, man will very rarely stand up, speak out the truth, because of all the troubles he will have once he has said the truth, his truth. So the truth is never heard. There are some who dare, certainly, but it's not a majority. And then I'm not even talking about applying it. So you might say, what are the solutions for the environmental problems? I would say, changing our philosophy of life. Accepting again that there's a source of intelligence that transcends man, with which we can have contact, each one of us, through our soul, through our meditations, through our a life that takes in account the existence of that higher source and that tries to link up to it regularly. In many kind of ways. You can do it by meditation, by yoga, by walking in nature, by passing time, having some time in a silent environment, or sometimes while listening to music that takes you up. There are many ways but it's the idea of referring to something that goes above your personal reasoning. Because, as I already told, the personal reasoning is always deviating from the higher source by all kinds of reasoning to keep the harmony with the environment and to avoid the conflict. And that won't solve anything. The second solution is simplifying our life, because that's what that higher source will suggest us. Seeking less solutions in doing all kinds of things on the outer plane. For the moment, man, to avoid the void inside, he's all day long busy eating, drinking, doing things that are using a lot of material, wasting, whereas he should perhaps be busy with activities that cost less, but that ask a bit more effort, and that are more healthy for him, for man. And then the third factor is seeking again the wisdom of those who know, those who have already gone a path inside themselves of self-transformation, and who can give advice that is worthy. But as I already said, it might be we will be naturally brought to that by the problems we live, unless we individually have the courage to stand up for the truth, our truth, and to live it. So you might say that the environmental question is a very profound question we are dealing with at this moment, which puts a question mark around the way we think, what is our basic philosophy of life as human beings on earth, the way we live, and it has to do with the way we think. And if you bring this all to one point, I would say the sense of life. And of the sense of life I would like to speak in my last part.
Thank you, Mother, for part 6 of your answer on the environment. So please subscribe to not miss any of Mother's videos. The next one will be the conclusion on the environment, and then we'll have more videos about other subjects. Write us your comments, and we will read them all, and we'll see you at the next one.
Amène-moi un jour au-delà de ces nuages. Amène-moi un jour en rêve. Amène-moi un jour au-dessus de toutes les vagues. Amène-moi un jour, pourrais-je toute la vie, la trame d'une même histoire, toute la vie, une quête qui se poursuit, toute la vie.